So would you join me in welcoming Selena Griffith?
Oh, thanks, Joe. Oh, I can wave my arms around,
You can wave your arms
wander,
around.
and have the remote. This never happens at home. I've got teenagers. So I just glibly called this what I did in the holidays because I don't get holidays at the end of the year. It's really funny when your uni students go at the end of semester, hey, have a great holiday. And you're like, what holiday? I'm teaching summer school. So my teaching happens at this place, which is the Centre of Social Impact, which is part of the University of New South Wales. And they mostly do research, and we've got this little tiny program, which is a graduate certificate in social innovation. And we have just edged into the MBA, and we've now got an MBA major online with the business school, and that's all online. So my teaching shifted from face-to-face, which I love, to predominantly online, which is a massive challenge to create a learning community. So my response to that was to go out and win a whole lot of federal funding to do intensive programs when you travel with the students. So I teach at the two ends of the teaching extreme. There's a few of my ex-students here tonight, so it mustn't be too bad if they turned up for a talk. And some of them feature in the slides, so we won't embarrass them too much. But one of the things that the university is doing at the moment is this thing called work integrated learning. And just like all big institutions, it's great at saying this is our mission, this is what we're doing. And then they put all these administrative things in the way to make it fairly much impossible to achieve any of the outcomes that they're saying that they want to have. But I have found all these little niches and chinks in their armour to allow me to take 11 students to Bali, 4 students to India, and another 4 students to Myanmar. Who's been to Indonesia? Did any of you visit the black soldier fly pig farm? No, okay. Who's been to India? Did anyone visit the school which is also a home for people in a coma? Okay. And Myanmar. Anyone been to Myanmar? Burma? Oh, so, okay, one of you. Have you been to the arid dry zone? Okay, excellent. So I can talk about a whole lot of places you haven't been to. I might just make stuff up, but I don't really need to. So these ooh, hold on, let's go back. Okay, so I get all these students that go and enrol in these courses because they think, awesome, guess what I'm going to do in my holidays? I'm going to do a course, I'm going to travel, it's going to be so much fun. I'm going to have lots of time to go shopping in cheap countries. Nah, sorry. I'm terrible. So what I've designed, what I've had to learn to design, so imagine a 24/7, 3-week-long agile project that you're delivering on the fly. That's what this is. And it's really awesome when you can find locations that don't have phone or internet coverage. And we'll talk about why, and it sort of supports what you're talking about previously. But it's experiential, which means they're having experiences. It's engaged, so they need to interact with businesses on the ground in those countries. It's applied, so they're applying all the theory that they have learnt all the way along. And they're learning as they go, so it needs to become a reflective practice. Reflective practice is impossible with internet and phone communication. And I'll tell you what, when you see someone trying to keep a journal on a mobile phone and what they hand into you is appalling. And we have a lot of talks about that, which is generally why the last week or 5 days on any of these programs is somewhere so remote that they can't access the internet and they have to do their final projects without internet and without phones, and they have to work together, and that's quite magic. And the reflections from the students is it's awesome not having technology. It hurt for a few days, but then we got a lot done. Okay, so in Indonesia, we were concentrating on waste. So we looked at the Sustainable Development Goals, and one of the biggest problems in Indonesia is that 80% of the economy relies on tourism. So who's been to Bali for tourism? Okay. You guys, on average, produce 5 kilos of rubbish a day. A local produces 500 grams. It's a massive tax on the country. Most of your waste is plastic. Most of their waste is organic. So it's a very big problem. So we were looking at emerging social enterprises that were tackling the waste problems. And we had a whole lot of really interesting students. They're all doing the same degree. They're all in their final semester. We had 5 Chinese nationals. We had a Sri Lankan, an Indian, an Iranian, a Canadian, and the rest were Australian. And so it was quite a nice, diverse group. But I've got all of those cultural needs to balance, plus we're in another culture. Okay. And anyone who does any of these sorts of things will know that on day 4, everyone has a breakdown. It's kind of like when caterpillars make a chrysalis and they dissolve and then they reform into a butterfly. I call it the chrysalis day, because all of a sudden you've had them away from home, away from their support system. They've had to make new friends. They've visited a whole lot of very confronting things. They realise they're part of the problem. They realise the problem's so huge they can't solve it on their own, and then they start to cry. That's okay. Your tears never really hurt anyone. What happens is that all these people who've never met anyone in their whole time studying at university, which is really sad, all of a sudden come home with 10 awesome brand new friends and feel that they're part of a community. In India, not a really flattering photo, but it sort of summed up the India trip. This is the Ashk Patra Foundation. Has anyone heard of the Hare Krishna movement? Okay, so the Hare Krishnas feed 2.5 million kids a week in India. They don't do any religious outreach because they bless the food before the kids eat it, so therefore they're having the experience. And as a result, they have to have really high-tech, amazing systems. And we went and visited their major ashram in Jaipur, and these are our students doing a tour of their kitchen, which can make 70,000 chapatis an hour. On a machine they designed themselves, but they started out with a whole lot of old ladies cooking them on open fires, then realised that they couldn't quite get it out. But why do they cook 2.5 million meals a week for kids? Those kids, it's the best meal they get in a day, and that meal is what makes them come to school. And the impact of them coming to school is they might learn something, and then if they learn something, they might be able to go from primary school to high school. If they go to high school, they might get some other education, but it's a social enabler, and they've worked out that food is the best way to get anyone to the table. So food is a really big part of these entire trips. I must say that we go to the worst third world places in the worst parts of those, and I've never had anyone get sick. Want to know the trick? Cholera injection before you go. Wipes out all your tummy bugs. Life straw water bottle. That's it. That's all you need on any of these dodgy places you go to. But anyway, so these students were learning about the food, and we're having a discussion on quality control here. So what does quality control mean to you guys? It's probably quite a rigorous process. You've got lots of people who are qualified to test. Quality control for these guys is taking a little bit of each of the food stuffs that's being cooked for the kids. They take it up to the ashram, they bless it, and then it comes back down again. And they look at it. Does it look the same as the stuff that, yep, it's fine, it's been blessed. Nothing can go wrong with it now. And off it goes to feed 2.5 million kids. They never get anyone sick either. So they've got really good processes, but I'm not sure on the quality control systems. In Myanmar, we were really lucky to work with 2 social enterprises, and we had 4 students, and no one in either of the social enterprises spoke English. And they had been given really complex business plans by a UN delegation that came over and said, we're going to fix all your problems for you. So our students translated these high-level business plans into visual images so that the communities could enact their business plans. So it was such an amazing project. So we've got 4 kids that came away, and they just feel like what happened was there were 300 of these communities that were given these high-level business plans, and 30 of them were invited to our workshop, but all 300 turned up. One of my students was incredibly shy. So shy that if you said, good morning, how do you feel, she would melt into the floor because she'd have to give an opinion on how she felt. She was running full-on workshops with these people in a foreign language by the end of 2 weeks. So she's been a whole week. So these programs bring out the best in a lot of people. Okay. So, but one of the challenges for me is how to design the best experience. And the question comes for me is, does the best experience equal the best experience? This photo sums this up totally. So there is a lake in northern, there's 4 places that you're allowed to visit, the government lets you visit in Myanmar, and one of them is this lake called Lake Inle. And they have this tradition of these men on long boats that they paddle with one leg, so this leg holds the paddle, the other one holds the fishing net, and they fish. But they don't do this anymore because they've got nets now. So when you arrive at the lake, they have a whole lot of actors at the one point in for the tourists to go to the lake. So you can get the photo of, like the National Geographic or the Lonely Planet photo before you go. So this is experience design on a state level. I have to do experience design on a level that's safe. And what I've decided is no, the best experience isn't the best experience for this context of learning. The best experience is authentic. And that best experience includes disasters and horrific things and confronting things and really awesome things. And the best experience is flexible enough to encapsulate or bring in the odd, weird thing that pops up that's an opportunity that you could. So who loves to travel without too much of a plan? Yes. Try doing that in an institution that is a self-insurer. Okay. So I give all of our admin staff a complete heart attack when we run these programs. It's amazing they let me do it because they say, what, you're going on a boat? You could drown. So I'll make sure they're wearing life vests. Do you know what their insurance policy number is? No. And so we have these constant debates about weighing the risk. I've got to the point where I don't tell anyone, but often don't put all the activities down. Canyoning happened on this trip. Shh. Okay. So you might, does anyone know Leo? This guy here from Telstra? Okay, you know Leo. He came on our trip. So what's really cool with these trips is occasionally people go, that sounds awesome, I'd like to come. I'm from Telstra. Where's David? David's over there. David came and tutored on one of our trips to Myanmar, so he can correct me on any big generalisations I make about Myanmar. Eric, one of our students. Hi. Tom, online student. Hi. Is it better face to face? Yeah, okay, great. I'm vindicated. Okay, so we also like to be immersive and contextual and look at the whole system. So systems thinking is big, understanding the ecosystem working is big, understanding the cultural system that you're working in is really, really important because you can make terrible mistakes and offend everyone, particular project partners, if you don't get the context and the whole systems understanding happening. So I generally like, before I expose the kids to, or the students to everyone, to have 2 days of a culturalisation where we discuss the differences in our culture and their culture, what's appropriate to wear, which is, David, was that a challenge for you? Yeah, when you've got a student that only lives in Lycra and you're in a country that doesn't like tight-fitting clothes, it can be quite a challenge. Did you take them shopping? Yeah, okay. Shopping can be helpful. It's all about framing. So, yeah, get it. So I kind of run them through a 2-day PESTLE analysis of the country that they're in. And it was really interesting for me because I like to come in with a fairly good understanding of who we're engaging with and what we're doing, which I had for the India project. But then UNSW Finance got involved. And they've got a new system and it's completely rigid and they offended every one of our project partners to the point where they all pulled out. So we arrived in India without a project partner, and I was like, oh my God, how am I going to make this an amazing experience for my students? So I've got the feedback from them today. They all loved it, but they all wrote we didn't get the experience we signed up for. And that's the worst thing to get as feedback as an educator. But I couldn't do anything about it. So on the trip in India, I turned the mission on its head and I said, rather than you helping a social enterprise, why don't you identify a whole lot of future opportunities for all the other students that come on this program? So I wrote back to all the students and thank you very much for your feedback. I really want to thank you for all of the hard work. Your report's fantastic. Do you realise that we're now got 5 new projects and you have formed the seed for each of those projects? And every one of them wrote back immediately, so we want to change our feedback, of course. So I think communication becomes a really important, expectation management on these projects becomes a really important part of it. And sometimes, as I said to the guys in India, things happen and you have to adapt and change and work with it. And it's a fantastic learning experience, particularly going into industry. Because how many times have you had a project that's just the arse has fallen out of it? Sorry guys, I told you I wouldn't swear, but anyway, it was mild swearing. Okay. Political's really interesting because in Myanmar you are legally not allowed to talk about politics. Try doing a business model canvas without talking about politics, or any business planning without talking about politics. It's a really important part of any business planning process. It is illegal. So we had one of our project partners, as we put all our post-it notes on, coming around and peeling half of them off because we couldn't talk about religion or politics, or that couldn't be part of the business plan. It couldn't be formal. It had to be secret. So we kind of went, David, how did we end up dealing with that?
We mutually agreed that spot there, there's a gap, would be about blocked.
Yeah. Yeah. So sometimes, and David had to deal with a lot of this. We might bring him in a bit later. Economics is a really interesting part of what we do, and one of the two things that I love to illustrate economics is take everyone to the most expensive shopping part of town and take everyone to the local markets where everyone eats and shops. So this is the social enterprise we were working with. They are the expensive end of retail in Myanmar, and this is the local markets where everyone comes in every morning at 5 o'clock, or the women do, and put all their wares out. Excellent. I've got 10 minutes left. Okay. Why do we need to understand about economics? Because we come in and go, oh my God, $1 Australian equals 7 million of their dollars. We're so rich. And if that, like, in Myanmar, we're working in a zone where if you earn $30 a month, you're doing really, really, really well. And so it's very easy to be quite offensive in your consumption. I think it's really important to become sensitive in this context. And it's like when you're dealing with clients, you know, do you want to look like you're a rich agency, or do you want to look like a poor agency that needs a bit of, you've got to kind of think about where are you going to pitch yourself to these people. And I say to a lot of the students, we want to be like the people that we're working with so they trust us. So I think you'll see some photos in a minute where everyone, well, you can see this lady here, she's got what's called Tanaka on her face, which is the local sunscreen. It's a ground out of a local plant. If anyone's a biochemist here, I reckon we could make a fortune out of this. This is a natural sunscreen that won't kill the coral reefs. And they put it on their face. Everyone does it every day. So we did it every day. So we were like everyone else. Part of the belonging to the economy is consuming in the economy like the local market. Social aspects can be really, really confronting, particularly for students. This amazing woman here, she's a policewoman. 30% of the police force in Alwar are women, which is a really high rate in India. And she works for a domestic violence service, so she escorts counsellors to and from meetings and makes sure that in this domestic violence service, and it kind of sounds a bit weird in a Western context, but the men and the women come in together. So she's around to make sure that the blokes don't do the wrong thing and the wives don't do the wrong thing. And often it involves the whole extended family. So there's 3 of her, there's 3 women, but they ride these cool motorbikes and they get around. And she escorted us on our journey around the city, which was pretty cool, and to this wonderful school. So these girls are getting an education. Their brothers are all expected to get an education, and their family are paying for it, but the families won't pay for the girls to get an education because they've got enough money to educate one child, not both, or maybe all the boys, but none of the girls. So this is an amazing school. It's in a castle that was donated by the royal family of Rajasthan because they have a few spare castles around. It's a rather lovely site. Half of it's an asylum and the other half is a school. And for $300, you can fund one of these girls to get an education every year. And they've got up to year 5 at the moment because they started it 7 years ago. They start at 3. And the girls are performing really well. And they also get a lot of local girls that come in and get educated outside of their other schools. And instead of going home and being made to do chores, they are allowed to study, which is a luxury. And they get some snacks in the afternoon, which means that they're not starving while they're eating. So we're working on the ground with some really interesting but very, very challenging social issues. And that can be quite confronting for students. So you become, in this context of the 24/7 Agile project, a bit of a counsellor as well. Technological issues, this is the 70,000, is that to make me speak faster?
That's your model.
Yeah. This is the chapati machine that makes 70,000 chapatis an hour. It's amazing. So these guys, you go into the ashram, there's all these guys in their cloaks. This guy was an investment banker with HSBC. This guy was the chief engineer for Arup in Singapore. They're all amazingly highly qualified. They've done their bit in industry. They felt they've done some wrong. They've now come back and they're giving back through becoming novitiates within the ashram and then becoming monks or devotees. And they are only allowed to eat once a day. They sleep 5 hours a day, and the rest of the time is them devoting their time to develop. So they have the kick-ass business plan of all business plans. They have all the technical knowledge that you would ever need to have to run a really diverse business. And the other business they put together, which I love, which took a little while to... Oh, Eric, you had a problem with this one for a little while. The cows. Okay, so are cows sacred in India? Yep. There's a big problem with cow napping. People from other parts of India that don't believe the cows are sacred, cow nap them and eat them. It's a big problem. And also they get old and decrepit and they don't produce milk and then they don't get looked after. So they are bringing all the cows into one location. They are turning the cow poo into biogas. The sludge from that process is being turned into a really, really good fertiliser, which they use on their farm to grow the vegetables to feed their 2.5 million kids a week. They are building a cow safari, so you can go and visit a cow safari. So you might laugh, but it's culturally really relevant to have a cow safari in Jaipur, just outside Jaipur. The female cows are producing milk. The milk is being used to make sweets and pastries, which are being sold. The profits from that go into funding the food for the kids at school. It's a beautiful, closed loop, amazing social enterprise built on incredible knowledge. And the only problem that they have is what to do with dead cow carcasses. Because if you're from this particular area of India, you don't eat cows and you don't butcher cows. And when the cows get old and die, what do you do with them? So if anyone can think of any good ideas, that could be a really cool thing to bring back to these guys. We might be thinking about it. Legal's really interesting. In Indonesia, the limitation on your business, if you've got a pig farm, which processes waste from hotels, is that you can only have 99 pigs, which is a real problem when you're breeding them, because you never know how many babies are coming. So you've got to have a few people that are happy to buy some of the pigs. So it actually becomes quite effective because there's no law over how many ducks you can have to eat all of the stuff from the hotels. So you can have a mixed model business where you have the ducks and the pigs. Pigs poo a lot. It's really hard to get rid of the poo. If you put black soldier fly larvae in that, I didn't put a photo in there because I thought it might gross you all out. The ducks will eat the black soldier fly larvae after they eat the poo. It's a really great, again, a beautiful closed loop system that these guys are developing. Environmental considerations. I took these 10 students on a bushwalk through the last national park left in Bali. 11 students, 9 of them had never been on a bushwalk before. We had monkeys throwing fruit at us, which was interesting. We saw fossils, they were fascinated, never seen fossils before. It's hard for us to imagine this living in Sydney, but this is such a valuable experience for people who have never had this kind of opportunity to visit somewhere which has been untouched, and to see what the natural environment means and why we need to protect it. So it's interesting to read the reflections back saying, now I understand why sustainability is really important. I just thought it was because it looked ugly. Now I realise that it kills lots of animals and that it destroys environments. Okay, cultural immersion can be quite difficult when you have people from lots of different cultural backgrounds. But it's very important to understand how people think. And one of the, this is visiting a mosque in India, and this one is being blessed by the local monk in Indonesia, Buddhist monk. What I found most humbling from our cultural experiences was a comment from our project partner in Myanmar who said, Muhammad Yunus came here and he made a whole lot of microloans. And we all think, yay, Muhammad Yunus, it's great, microloans are fantastic. He said, it increased human trafficking. And I was like, how can that happen? He's won an award and it's amazing. But in a culture that's mostly Buddhist, you don't say no to an offer because it's impolite. So everyone said yes, thank you very much. But culturally, it's not. Entrepreneurship isn't encouraged because it assists the individual rather than the whole group. So a lot of people got into so much debt they couldn't service their microloans, and they sold their kids and their wives and their children and themselves into indentured servitude, prostitution, and arranged marriages. So it created something that we think is really positive in that particular context needed to be changed. And it's not about not asking the right questions. And so it's really interesting for our students to hear that and then realise that, well, the project partner said, look, the only thing that works here is social enterprise. And we're like, yes, we're here to build social enterprises. That's great. We're useful. And to understand that you're useful is really good. So here's the students that got to work in Myanmar with a real enterprise, with a massive wall, building a business model canvas. Now, I saw a photo from these guys this morning on Facebook doing an exercise with someone else who was visiting, and this is still there 3 weeks later. It's of value. And this is Theory. She didn't come to the second day of our program, and then she sent me an email. She said, I'm in Yangon. I'm just going for a job interview. I've told them all about what we're doing with the business model canvas. They were so impressed they gave me the job. So she's so very quiet about it. But it's important to understand that when you're with these communities and delivering projects, you've got to deliver something that is useful. You can't run away and have it not working. You've got to create something, co-design it with them that works. Have I got through 2, 1, 3? Okay, great. So we want to work with real people. This is weavers, our students working with weavers and understanding weavers. We want to work on real projects. So this is the village books that happened in Myanmar that were part of the big UN project. And it's really interesting because there's been a big cultural shift because all of the funding was provided only for women's projects, not for men's projects. So there's been a power shift between men and women in the country, which has caused a whole lot of tension. But as the men have seen that it's good to let women have identity cards so they can't be smuggled, and bank accounts so they can save, and some autonomy, there's less tension in the village, that it's working. Everyone's on board now. Collaboration's a really big part of what we do. So we have our 2 master's students here, he's a mining engineer majoring in actuarial studies, and Shanice is a marketing manager, and she works in tech. This guy's the maggot farm owner. He's been running this for 4 years and has never looked at his books. He actually doesn't have any books. So his biggest problem with his business was he didn't know whether he was making profit or not. So they've just put an Excel spreadsheet together for him. It's made a huge difference to his life and planning, future planning. Empathy is really important. Here's Eric. Hi, Eric. I told you you'd been here. We went and visited a whole lot of artisans and we're all feeling like it's a shame they're not doing all their art anymore and it's a dying trade. Well, all of them don't want their kids doing the same work, hard work and toxic work that they're doing. They want they're aspiring for their kids to go to university and become business people or do something else. So we sort of lament this, but they're rejoicing that they're getting out of the business. It's not a bad thing. So our cultural overlays need to be peeled back and we need to step back and reserve those opinions. I love Austin. He's an engineer. His brief was keep notes at all times. Everyone else was on their phones. He had a slouch hat with a pen and a notebook. His reflective diary was the worst one of everyone's. Not because of this. He had beautiful illustrations, but he meticulously recorded everything we did, but he didn't reflect on how he felt about that or that experience. I sent it back. I said, Austin, I want you to tell me how you felt. And it was really hard for him. So we have a lot of training that we give different disciplines where we train out the humanity. And I think what I try to do is train back that humanity and that reflection. So we redid it, did it beautifully. It's fantastic now. I'm just going to do a couple more slides. I'm going to go a little bit over time, but you saved all that time in the middle, so it's okay, isn't it, Joe? Okay, the value of relationships is really good. So I feel a little bit like this magpie running all these projects because I really rely heavily on our project partners to help us create these experiences. And I'm really riding on the back of their hard work. So it's very important for me to be able to keep good relationships with them. And there's so many variables that are working in the project that you're delivering. So are the students behaving appropriately? Are we producing something that is relevant? Are we wasting their time or not? Is finance offending them? Do they want to do another project in the future? So it's a win on these if they want to engage in another project. Innovation becomes another big question for us, and this lovely lady cooks dinner for 3 meals a day for 30 men with mental disabilities in a remote building just outside of Alwa. She's stoked. She's got a new stove, makes life much easier. She used to just do it on a fire pit. So innovation in the context of a lot of the communities that we deal with isn't necessarily about the latest and the most amazing technology. It's about something that makes life easier. And this is good. She's very excited because she's getting 2 and they're going to be mounted so she doesn't have to sit down. So that's the next innovation that's happening. So iterative innovation can be good too if you listen to feedback. I just wanted to give you my last little bit on entrepreneurship. So these 2 kids are from Myanmar. Which one did I buy from? Yeah. They're both girls. Yeah. I bought from this one. She had the best personality. She kept pushing in. It's terrible. She kept pushing in front of this girl. But she really had the entrepreneurial spirit. She wasn't going to be bargained down. There was no way that she was going to let me pay any less. And so we bought from her, and then my mum bought from her because she felt sorry for her. But what I learned about entrepreneurship in the context of these, not always developing, some quite developed economies, but economies which are different to ours, is that everyone's on the make and everyone's got a bit of entrepreneurial spirit in them because everyone's trying to move up. And the people that are most successful at it are the ones that learn how to innovate, or how to be entrepreneurial without offending or upsetting you, by pleasing you in some way. And it's very much like what we try and do in user experience, which is the best experience. But what is the best experience? Sometimes the worst experience is the best experience. In this instance, it was a really great experience because she was just so good at selling and she was so persistent. She's going to be a great entrepreneur one day. My last couple of takeaways is that learning isn't everything that I guide the students to do. In fact, I do a lot of learning on these programs. We leave some space in for them to select their own activities. So here is Tadme. She went and enrolled to do a cooking course for a couple of evenings so she could learn how to cook the local food from Myanmar. The little kids at the school in Alwa taught me that I really need to be honest, efficient and regular as a teacher. These are words that I've never thought of in the context of my teaching practice, but she's so right. I'm often active and I'm always confident. Tactful can be really hard. I think I'm excellent. But this honesty, efficiency and regularity, they're not words I thought of. So I've got some goals to work on. The tip here is to keep everyone happy, cover basic needs, have somewhere to stay, make sure they form a community. Day 4 is important. Food is important, and activities to keep everyone stimulated and moving along. Random opportunities are awesome. 2 of these guys have never flown a kite before. We were in Rajasthan. It's the kite flying capital of the world. Someone offered for us to go flying on the roof of their house. Why would you say no? So we cancelled the other activity for the day, and they got to visit a traditional house, learn about water management, which is very innovative, and fly a kite in traditional clothing. Awesome. I didn't plan that into the trip. It was great. And sometimes there's other surprises. So this is a portrait of another one of my students who lives in India now, and her partner. The students did a learn to draw exercise, and then this popped up on Instagram. So I sent it back to Lee and said, Look at this gorgeous drawing they did of you. She's quite eccentric. She'd taken us on a tour around Delhi from an expat's perspective. So she shared that to everyone. You can do design thinking on a bus on a 3-hour trip. It's a great way to keep people distracted from vomiting. You never know what friendships are going to form. And sometimes the partners who have very little will be so beautiful. So one of our women in Indonesia brought us all bookmarks. Her daughter suffers from schizophrenia and cuts up things and paints things. And everyone cried when she gave them to us as a gift. So anyway, these sorts of things are great. So my last slide is that you're welcome to ask questions. It's been a bit random and flowy, but I hope you enjoyed the experience. I enjoyed the experience. Thanks.
This one's a bit iffy. Oh no, it likes me now.
Yay.
You mentioned something about USBs?
Yes. I don't have the USBs with me, but I have an electronic key that they can have.
Okay.
Okay, so I'm doing a shameless plug for my book. So the best 3 questions get an electronic copy of my book, which is Visual Tools for Innovation, Entrepreneurship and Collaboration, just out with Common Ground Publishing. So hit me with good questions and you might get a book. There we go.
I don't know why I handed you a mic. You've got a lapel mic.
Oh yeah,
Okay.
I'm mic'd up. Yep.
Said finance didn't do anything good for that trip. Did you find some more projects?
Yeah, so everyone wants to keep working, but I think that's only because the projects that the students delivered were valuable. And I've got David to thank for that in Myanmar because he kept everyone on track. In India, we already had a whole lot of them lined up. And the Bali guys, we worked with 10 social enterprises. There were 50 that they had that we could have worked with. Everyone else has got a FOMO. They want to do the next, and we got at least 3 more years out of that, and I've got 5 years of funding. So, yep. Hello.
Hello. Great talk. Thank you.
Thanks.
It's not really a question, but I want a book. So
It has to be a question. So.
Okay. Well, I was going to say I really liked the bit about the lake and the guy who rows his boat one-legged. Like how it's kind of expectations versus reality, like how we deal with that every day. Okay, what our expectations are, and actually how things really work. So I thought that was great. Thank you.
Well, my big question there is who pays that guy? Yeah.
That's my question.
Okay, great. Good question. Nice one. We got one over there. Hello.
Hello. Your enthusiasm and passion for what you do is so contagious. And in the first topic, we heard about apps only being on your phone and being used for the first couple of days. So how do you actually, with your students, keep that contagion going, that passion? How does that trigger the sustainability of what they're learning?
It's very difficult because every cohort's different. And you've got to make sure that we don't get cliques forming. WhatsApp is fantastic when we first start because everyone can keep in touch and know where everyone is, and you can share resources very easily. So when I first started doing this about 7 years ago, we started with Facebook, and then we shifted to Instagram, and now WhatsApp's the app that is the best for this. I would love something that's just us and isn't dependent on having a phone network. That we could all communicate with. Maybe we go to walkie-talkies, I don't know. we might go on a backward technology slide.
I've seen people do private Instagram.
Oh, yeah.
You can do it privately.
With a network. Yeah. Yep. We still need the internet. We got to have it, anyway, maybe something. Which one? Here? Excellent.
Yep. Thank you for your presentation. I'm coming from other field. I understand the human part of the stories and so on, but I would like to know how you report the results of this research in quantitative terms. How do you measure the impact in the long term of the presence of you and your students there, and how do you,
You're asking me this because I'm at the Centre for Social Impact, aren't you?
Sorry?
Well, I work for the Centre for Social Impact, and our big mission is to understand how to measure impact. And measuring impact is really hard, and you generally need to design your impact measurement in at the beginning of the project. So I have 3 layers of impact measurement that I do for this course. I have questions that I ask all of our partners. about whether we were useful, what we did, how many people we've impacted, do they think that's sustainable, would they come play again? That's the key one. So if they're going to come play again, we've succeeded on that one. With the students, I have a whole series of questions we ask about work integrated learning. So, did you think the course was good value? What have you learned? What skills are transferable to your professional practice when you graduate? How are you going to differentiate yourself as a graduate? Would you recommend this course to someone else? That's the last question, is the key one. If they wouldn't recommend it to someone else, then you've failed. The other ones are good to understand the impact that you've had ongoing. And the third group are the communities that we're dealing with. It's very hard because you can't talk to them directly. Generally, there's a language and culture gap there. So it's observational research for me. It's qualitative, not quantitative. And generally, I measure that on engagement. So if we've invited 20 people, if we get 15, it's okay. If we get 35, then we know we're doing all right because we've got more people engaging than we've intended to have engaged. So it's complex and it's multifaceted, and I have to think of all the different groups. From the university's perspective, I haven't killed anyone and I haven't caused any massive insurance claims, so we tick that box. It's good. Yep. Everyone's been brought. Oh, the other one is the funding that I continually receive. So I'm the most funded academic in Australia for these kinds of programs. Yep. That's qualitative, yeah.
I like,
qualitative, yeah.
I like the caveat, I haven't made any major insurance claims.
Yeah. Yeah.
I think we have to wind up with one
Last
more
one?
here.
Yep.
Hello, everybody.
Yeah.
I can imagine, because these are all very exotic locations, so in that environment, it's perhaps easier, I'm sure harder as well, to take away learnings, the students themselves to learn and reflect. Have you applied the same sort of methodology in local contexts, and what are some of the examples?
Yeah. So I run this locally as well as internationally. And last year we often do it by entering a social enterprise competition, and we for the first time last year entered the Big Ideas Social Enterprise competition. There's 2 categories. We won both categories and got 2 honourable mentions. We won undergraduate, postgraduate. So that's a metric of winning. Yes, the students do all the same reflection. But they don't have all the cultural learning, and they don't tend to have as much individual growth because they're in their own comfort zone. So what happens with these students is that they are outside of where they normally live. They have to become reliant on strangers and form friendships very quickly and alliances very quickly. So it's a survival. It's a bit like Survivor. But we don't kick anyone off the island unless they're really, really, really bad. And I think 2 beautiful sort of examples I can bring from that is on the India trip this year, one of the girls was from India. She's from an extremely protective Indian family. She's got a full scholarship to study in Australia. And she's never travelled independently before. She's 22. Oh, 21. She turned 21 while we were there. That's right. So she all of a sudden had a whole lot of responsibility because I would go to her every time I needed a translation. And we talked to strangers a lot on these trips, and she would initiate the discussions with the strangers. She would never normally do that. So her reflection was that I did so many things I would never normally do because I only ever travel with my family. And she had been in Australia for 2 years studying and never met. She lives with family here. It's a distance from uni, so she's never engaged with local students. She's now got 4 friends that she can do stuff with. She's been incredibly lonely, and now she feels like she's got family. And in fact, one of the students went back and stayed with her for a couple of days before they went home to meet her family. Another really good example is a few years ago I had an Egyptian student, and I didn't realise that, make the connection, it was Ramadan, so he wasn't eating on the trip. We went to Palau. We got on the aeroplane. He couldn't actually stand up when he got off the aeroplane. And he had told me he could swim. So Palau is 187 islands. And we spent 90% of that trip on the water, snorkeling, canoeing, kite canyoning, caving, looking at different things. And my initial sort of thought was, I need to send him home. He's going to be a liability on the trip. But all the students got together a plan, and they got all the life vests they could find, and they wrapped him in them. And they taught him to swim. They taught him to snorkel. You know when little kids first learn to snorkel, you hear the squeals coming out of the top? Yeah, 21-year-old man. Same thing. And on the very last day, and we had like one kid whose mum's a marine biologist and had spent every school holiday jumping off cliffs and poking sharks. And all the boys were doing backflips off a boat. And Mo wanted to do a backflip off the boat. So he came back up to the edge like this, and he did that. And everyone just cheered. So he'd done his backflip off the boat. So you form these it's amazing sense of community and family that's formed over the time. And what I love is after doing sort of 7 years worth of these programs, they all stay in touch. And David did Singapore and Vanuatu, and he's now teaching into the program. So it's a unique way of viewing the world. And a lot of people's feedback is, I have never seen the world before I did this. You've taught me how to see the world. So a lot of students, really high-performing students, they have these really narrow lives because their families want them to go to university, so they don't experience anything. So to have this experience at a university level is completely life-changing. And in fact, one of the guys from Bali hasn't had in his last assignment because he's been doing career change and changing roles, because he decided that his job doesn't give him fulfilment now that he understands what the real world problems are. So you can, create a few changes. Yeah, it's good. Measure that. Okay.
On that note, thank you.
Thank you.